It began on a calm morning that looked like any other day on Earth. The skies were blue, cities were awake, and people were busy with their usual routines. Children going to schools, workers heading to offices, farmers checking their crops. No one could have imagined that before the sun would set, the entire planet would face something no one had ever seen before. At first, people thought it was a strange weather event. Satellites showed massive shadows stretching across oceans and continents. Soon after, every device that could play a broadcast, from giant city screens to old radios in villages, suddenly stopped showing human news. Instead, a message appeared. The sound was clear, deep, and cold. "This transmission is from the Galactic Council," the voice said. "Your planet has been observed. Your species has reached the threshold of interstellar recognition. From this day onward, Earth will provide tribute, resources, labor, and compliance in service to the Council." The words echoed across the world in every language. People froze. Some laughed nervously, thinking it was a joke or some kind of movie stunt. But then the skies changed again. Above the clouds, hundreds of silver shapes appeared, stretching from horizon to horizon. Ships so massive they looked like floating cities. It wasn't a movie. It was real. Governments tried to contact one another, but most communication networks were jammed. The alien ships hovered silently, casting moving shadows over entire nations. Panic spread at first. Markets shut down, flights were canceled, and some people ran into shelters. But something strange happened after the first few hours. The fear began to change into something else. Curiosity, then anger, and then a kind of quiet unity. For the first time in history, every human, no matter what country, color, or belief, looked at the same thing in the sky and felt the same question burning in their hearts. What gives them the right to rule us? Within hours, emergency meetings began underground. The United Planetary Command, based in New Geneva, activated its crisis protocols. Generals, scientists, diplomats, and advisors gathered in a vast hall carved beneath the mountains. The air was tense but calm. There was no screaming, no chaos, just the heavy silence of people realizing the weight of what was happening. On the main screen in the center of the room, the alien message replayed. The voice of the Galactic Council was polite but absolute. "You have 72 hours to confirm your acceptance. Refusal will be considered rebellion." No one spoke for a while after the recording ended. Finally, a scientist broke the silence. "If they have technology to cross galaxies," he said quietly, "then they can destroy us without a fight. We can't win this." A general standing near the table responded calmly. "Maybe not with weapons, but maybe with something else." The others turned to look at him, unsure what he meant. He continued, "They think we're weak because we're from one small planet. They don't understand what we've been through, how many times we've rebuilt after destroying ourselves. Maybe they've never met a species like us before." Around the table, screens flickered with live feeds from around the world. People gathering in public squares, looking up, holding hands, standing together. Despite the fear, the planet was united in silence. No one was running anymore. They were waiting. The diplomats began discussing possible responses. Some argued they should accept the tribute to buy time. Others said humanity should resist even if it meant destruction. The debate grew intense but respectful. No shouting, only deep, serious voices. A representative from one of the smaller nations said softly, "We fought for centuries to learn peace. We built this unity with our blood. If we give it away now, what was it all for?" Another replied, "And if we refuse, billions could die. Can we risk the whole species for pride?" The argument went on for hours. Coffee cups grew cold and the lights dimmed as night fell outside. The faces around the table showed exhaustion, but also determination. Humanity was not used to bowing easily. At last, the world's leaders voted to send a message, not an answer yet, but a request for dialogue. The transmission was simple. "We acknowledge your presence. We request peaceful discussion." The message was sent. For a moment, hope returned. Maybe the Galactic Council would be reasonable. Maybe they wanted cooperation, not domination. But only minutes later, the alien ships responded. A blinding light appeared in the sky, and for a moment, it looked like a second sun had risen. It wasn't an attack, it was a demonstration. Every satellite orbiting Earth was suddenly disabled. Communication systems crashed. Power grids flickered. Then the same cold voice returned. There will be no discussion. Tribute is not negotiation. Submit within 70 hours. The message ended. Inside the command center, no one spoke for a long time. The screens were dark, and the only sound was the quiet hum of backup generators. Then, from one corner of the room, a calm voice spoke. It belonged to an older man, the Earth representative known for his calm during crises. They have power, he said, but power without respect means nothing. They think fear will break us, but fear can unite us too. He stood up and walked toward the viewing window where the alien ships glowed faintly in the sky. Every generation of humans, he said softly, has faced something that looked impossible. Famine, war, disease, disaster. Every time we survived because we refused to surrender our spirit. If we kneel now, we lose that forever. The others listened silently. One by one they nodded. Something in the air had changed. A quiet, heavy decision forming in every heart. Across the world, people began to adapt to the new reality. Families stayed indoors, but not out of terror, out of caution. Military bases activated defenses, not to attack but to prepare for any sign of aggression. Scientists worked in secret labs trying to understand the technology hovering above their planet. And ordinary people, teachers, doctors, workers, began recording messages for each other, promising that whatever happened next, humanity would face it together. The alien ships didn't move. They didn't speak again. They simply waited, silent and still, like predators watching their prey decide whether to fight or flee. But humanity wasn't planning to flee. Over the next 2 days, something incredible happened. Instead of panic, there was purpose. Instead of chaos, there was coordination. People began volunteering for emergency services. Communities shared food and power. And nations that once mistrusted each other began sharing information freely. For the first time in history, Earth was one, truly one. In newsrooms and classrooms, people asked the same question. What should our answer be? The debate wasn't just for leaders anymore. It belonged to everyone. Social networks, talk shows, street corners, and every voice mattered. Some said surrender was survival. Others said defiance was the only choice worthy of being human. And through it all, the countdown continued. 70 hours, 60, 50. The alien ships glowed brighter each night, as if reminding humanity that time was running out. Still, the people of Earth did not panic. They waited for their leaders, and their leaders waited for the final meeting, the one where the decision would be made. By the time the last night arrived, the world outside was eerily peaceful. The skies were quiet, filled with stars and shadows of ships. On the surface, billions of humans looked up and whispered silent prayers, not to any god or ruler, but to their own courage. And deep beneath the mountains of New Geneva, the leaders of Earth gathered one final time. The oldest among them spoke first. Whatever we say now will define what it means to be human for the rest of time. The others nodded. The world's cameras were ready. The transmission lines had been restored, hidden from the aliens. Every human on Earth, from deserts to megacities, would see what was about to happen. They had one chance, one word, one moment to decide the future. And as the screen flickered on and the alien voice returned, asking once again for Earth's answer, every person on the planet felt the same heartbeat echo through their chest. The representative stepped forward, calm and steady. The light of the transmission filled his face as he stared directly at the alien projection. The alien voice repeated, cold and demanding, "Do you accept your place under the authority of the Galactic Council?" He took a slow breath. Around him, the world waited, and then with absolute calm, he opened his mouth, ready to speak humanity's answer. The moment the message ended, silence filled the entire command center. Every person in that underground hall stared at the dark screen, still glowing faintly from the alien transmission. No one moved. The words of the Galactic Council echoed again and again in their minds like a drumbeat. Submit within 70 hours. The representative who stood before the microphone slowly sat down. He looked exhausted but calm. Everyone understood what had just happened. The aliens had given humanity an ultimatum. There was no misunderstanding, no hidden meaning. They were being told to kneel. One of the security officers whispered, "What happens now?" No one answered. The world outside looked peaceful, but that peace was strange and the kind that comes before a storm. The alien ships were still visible in the night sky. They didn't move, didn't attack, didn't communicate again. They simply hovered above the atmosphere, glowing like watchful eyes. In the following hours, emergency meetings began everywhere. World leaders joined through secure connections, their faces tired but focused. Screens showed small rooms filled with people who had not slept for 2 days. Scientists, politicians, military officers, and even cultural representatives sat around the long table in New Geneva. This was not about power anymore. This was about survival and dignity. An older commander spoke first. His voice was steady but heavy. "We have confirmed the scale of their technology," he said. "Their energy output is far beyond ours. If they attack, we cannot win with force." He paused for a moment, letting the truth settle in the air. "But if we submit, we lose more than our freedom. We lose our future." Everyone in the room understood that. Humanity had fought too long and too hard to finally unite. The wars of the past, the famine, the rebuilding, all of it had led to this fragile peace. And now, just as they were learning to live as one people, strangers from the sky wanted to claim ownership over them. A diplomat from one of the southern continents leaned forward. "They are not asking for cooperation. They are asking for obedience. If we accept their rule, we will never be free again. Every generation after us will live under their command." A scientist adjusted his glasses, looking tired. "But what if refusal means destruction? Our weapons cannot reach their ships. They can wipe us out in minutes." The room grew tense again. Everyone knew he was right. Humanity was clever, but it was still young compared to the civilizations that ruled the stars. What chance did they really have? Then the same old commander said quietly, "They think we are afraid to die. That's their mistake. Humans don't survive because we are stronger. We survive because we don't give up." For a moment, no one said anything, but something shifted in the room, a spark of silent pride. Everyone there knew the truth of his words. Humanity had faced extinction before. Climate collapse, nuclear threats, diseases, wars. Every time the species had come close to disappearing, it had clawed its way back. Not because it was powerful, but because it refused to vanish quietly. Outside the underground base, the rest of the world waited. News networks were running 24 hours a day. Reporters stood in dark streets lit by strange light from the ships above. People watched the skies but went on with their lives, sharing food, checking on neighbors, and speaking softly about what might happen. It was strange how calm people were. There was fear, yes, but also a shared feeling that whatever decision was coming, they would face it together. Inside the command hall, the discussion continued for hours. Ideas were drawn, erased, and debated again. Some suggested pretending to agree with the council while secretly preparing a defense. Others said humanity should immediately show resistance, to make it clear that they would never kneel. Finally, a quiet voice spoke from the corner. It belonged to a woman who rarely talked in meetings. She was an analyst, not a politician. "Maybe we're looking at this wrong," she said softly. "They expect us to answer like a lesser species, desperate, afraid. What if we answer differently? What if we show them that humans don't think like slaves?" Everyone turned toward her. "What do you mean?" someone asked. She replied, "We shouldn't react like victims or heroes. We should speak as equals. No anger, no begging. Just clarity. Let them see we know our worth." That idea settled deeply in everyone's minds. It wasn't about shouting or threatening. It was about dignity, the calm power of a species that refused to be treated as less. The room went quiet again, this time not in fear but in thought. The representative from the northern states spoke next. "So we agree. The answer must come from strength, not violence. From unity, not arrogance," they all nodded. For the first time since the alien ships arrived, they had a direction. The next question was who would deliver the message. It had to be someone the world trusted, someone whose words carried both wisdom and peace. A list of candidates appeared on the screen, but most declined quietly. Some said they couldn't handle the pressure. Others believed a military leader should speak. But in the end, everyone turned toward the same person, the representative who had spoken during the first broadcast. He was calm, composed, and carried a quiet kind of authority that didn't come from power but from patience. He didn't speak immediately. He just looked around the room at the faces staring back at him, people of different nations, languages, and beliefs, all waiting for his answer. Then he gave a small nod. "If the world asks it of me," he said, I will speak for humanity, but the words we choose must come from all of us. The discussion turned to the message itself. What should they say to the Galactic Council? Some suggested a long statement about peace and cooperation. Others said the aliens wouldn't care about speeches. The argument went in circles for hours until a young linguist who had been silent the entire time raised his hand. Maybe we don't need many words, he said. Sometimes one word can hold the meaning of millions. Everyone looked at him curiously. One word? The commander asked. And what word would that be? The linguist shrugged. I don't know yet. But whatever it is, it must show them that Earth doesn't belong to anyone. It was late when the meeting ended. People walked out slowly, each lost in thought. The representative stayed behind for a while, standing near the giant window that looked out into the dark sky. From there, he could see the faint shimmer of the alien ships above the clouds, motionless, waiting. He knew they were probably watching everything, listening to every signal, scanning every word humans said. But they could not scan what was in the human heart. Outside, night settled across the continents. People gathered in small groups, lighting candles, holding each other close. They weren't praying for safety anymore. They were praying for courage. By the next morning, the countdown had reached 30 hours. The council had not spoken again. Maybe they were confident that humans would soon obey, or maybe they were watching, curious to see how this young, unpredictable species would respond. In classrooms, teachers told students stories about Earth's history, how their ancestors had once looked up at the stars and dreamed of reaching them. In hospitals, doctors worked calmly, refusing to abandon their patients. In small homes, families shared meals and whispered promises. Whatever happens, we stay human. In New Geneva, the leaders met again. The air was thick with tension, but also with determination. The representative looked at each person one by one. We have heard the opinions of scientists, soldiers, and citizens. We have weighed fear against pride, safety against freedom. But we must remember something simple. They asked for tribute. They asked for our obedience. They believe they can own us. The only answer worthy of our species is the one that reminds them we belong to no one. He paused, letting the words sink in. We don't need a long speech, he continued. We just need the truth. Simple, clear, and human. No one disagreed. It felt as if the entire planet had silently agreed to the same thing. No matter how small the word was, it would carry the weight of every soul on Earth. Outside, thunder rolled in the distance, though no storm was forecast. It was strange, almost symbolic, like the planet itself was preparing for what was coming. That evening, the representative sat alone in his chamber, looking at an old photo of Earth taken from space. A small blue world floating in endless blackness, beautiful, fragile, alive. He smiled faintly. We may be small, he whispered, but we are not weak. The next morning, he would stand before the camera again. The alien ships would be listening. The galaxy would be watching. And humanity, billions of hearts beating as one, would wait for a single word that would change their destiny forever. The day of decision arrived quietly. There were no sirens, no speeches, no cheering crowds. The world simply woke up knowing this was the day that would decide its future. The alien ships were still there, silent and cold, hanging above the planet like giant shadows. The sun rose, but its light looked dull compared to the glow of those strange vessels. In cities and villages alike, people gathered around screens. Cafes that had been closed for days reopened just to let people watch together. Families sat close in their homes. Strangers stood shoulder to shoulder in public squares. Nobody knew what the leaders would say, but everyone knew what they wanted them to say. The atmosphere was heavy, yet calm. Children asked quiet questions and parents tried to answer, even though they didn't really know. Some people were afraid, but most felt something deeper. Pride. Humanity had faced impossible choices before, but never one that would echo across galaxies. In the underground command center of New Geneva, the representatives sat together for the final time before the broadcast. The air was thick with tension, but not panic. Everyone had accepted that there was no turning back. The message would go out to the Galactic Council in less than an hour. The representative who would deliver the message sat alone for a few minutes in a quiet chamber. On the table before him was a single microphone. Behind the glass wall stood the world's technical crew, ready to send the transmission through every network on the planet. The leaders were gathered behind him, waiting. He closed his eyes for a moment and breathed slowly. He could almost feel billions of hearts beating with him. When he finally opened his eyes, there was a quiet strength in them, the kind that doesn't come from power, but from conviction. One of the officers asked softly, "Are you ready?" He nodded. "Yes, but more than me, the world is ready." The final checks began. The signal connection with the Galactic Council's main vessel was established. Their holographic presence shimmered on a giant screen. Tall, unfamiliar beings with calm faces and eyes like burning metal. They looked neither angry nor kind, just distant, as if they were speaking to a species they had already judged. The alien voice echoed again, clear and deep. "We repeat our command. Submit your world as a tribute to the Council. Do you accept your place under our authority?" The representative stood slowly. He didn't rush to answer. He simply walked forward until he was close to the microphone. Behind him, the entire Council of Earth stood silently. Every human watching around the world could see his face. Calm, steady, and full of quiet determination. He looked at the holographic image of the alien leader. For a few seconds, he said nothing. The silence stretched so long that some people thought the signal had frozen. But he was just taking one last breath, one last moment to carry the weight of all humanity in his voice. Then he spoke. Just one word, no. It was simple, clear, and calm. No anger, no shouting. Just the most powerful refusal in history. For a moment, nothing happened. The alien holograms didn't move. The humans in the control room didn't breathe. The whole planet seemed to freeze, and then the signal ended. The holograms vanished. The giant screen went black. There was no reply. The silence that followed was heavier than anything before. It wasn't fear, it was the sound of realization. Humanity had just told an intergalactic empire no. One small planet had refused an entire council of worlds. Outside, in the cities and towns, people stared at their screens. For a few seconds, no one spoke. And then, slowly, a wave of sound began to spread. Not from one place, but everywhere. Applause. Cheers. Cries of relief and pride. People were hugging each other in the streets, laughing through tears. Even those who had been afraid felt their hearts lift. Humanity had not bowed. The representative stood still for a few moments after the transmission ended. He turned to the others behind him and said quietly, "Whatever comes next, we gave the right answer." The others nodded. No one knew what the aliens would do now, but everyone knew they would face it together. The next hours passed in strange quiet. The alien ships didn't move or respond. They remained still in the sky, glowing faintly like silent judges. On Earth, people waited. Governments went on alert, but there was no chaos. Instead, there was unity. Humanity had chosen its path. Inside the command center, analysts watched the alien signals closely. For hours, they detected only silence. No weapon charges, no movement. It was almost as if the Galactic Council itself was in shock. Maybe they had expected begging. Maybe they had expected surrender. But they had not expected calm defiance. As the first day passed with no retaliation, tension slowly shifted to curiosity. Scientists began to analyze what they had learned about the alien ships. They realized the ships were observing more than threatening, scanning human broadcasts, reading data, watching human reactions. The world, in its own way, returned to motion. News channels replayed the moment again and again. The single word "no" was painted on walls, printed on flags, whispered in every home. It wasn't just a refusal. It had become a declaration of identity, of freedom, of humanity itself. In one small coastal town, a teacher told her students, "You will grow up remembering this day." The day the world spoke as one voice. The children didn't understand everything, but they smiled. They knew it was something big. Meanwhile, in distant space, the Galactic Council debated among themselves. The refusal had confused them. No world had ever said no before. Most species, when faced with the Council's demand, had accepted their fate immediately. A few had tried to fight and all had lost, but none had responded with such calm certainty. It was unsettling. Back on Earth, as the second night began, people gathered again to watch the skies. Some expected the ships to leave. Others feared they would attack. But nothing happened. The ships remained motionless as if thinking. The representative sat quietly in his room that night watching the stars through the window. He wondered what the aliens were feeling. Was it anger? Confusion? Or just maybe a strange kind of respect? He didn't know. But deep down he hoped that by standing firm, humanity had shown them something they hadn't seen before. The strength that comes not from weapons, but from unity and belief. By the third day, small signs began to appear. One of the alien ships changed its orbit slightly, moving higher above the atmosphere. Another dimmed its lights. The analysts noticed that the constant scanning signals had stopped. It seemed as if the council was pulling back, slowly, carefully. But they said nothing. There was no farewell message, no threat, no apology. They simply began to leave. People on the ground watched in awe as the ships one by one disappeared into the clouds, leaving behind only faint trails of light. The skies cleared for the first time in weeks. The stars looked brighter than ever. There was no celebration, not in the loud sense. No fireworks or parades, just quiet relief. People hugged each other, smiled, cried softly. The representative appeared once more on the global broadcast. His face was tired, but his eyes shone. "We don't know if they're gone for good," he said. "Maybe they'll return. But today we learned something about ourselves. We are small in this universe, but we are not weak. We have something even the most powerful civilizations may have forgotten: the courage to choose our own path." His words spread across the planet. People listened, and something inside them changed. It wasn't just pride. It was peace. The deep kind that comes when you know who you are. That night, as the world finally slept without fear, the stars above seemed closer. The alien ships were gone, but their visit had left something behind. A new understanding. Humanity realized it was not alone, but also that it didn't need to be afraid. They had stood their ground, not with violence, but with conviction. In the following days, the one-word reply became a legend. Songs were written about it. Children learned it in school. No became the word that reminded everyone of what it meant to be human. To stand tall even when you are small. To hold your ground even when you're surrounded by giants. No one knew if the Galactic Council would ever return. Maybe they would. Maybe they wouldn't. But if they did, humanity already knew what it would say, the same word, spoken again without fear. No. And that, more than any weapon or invention, was the day Earth truly became part of the universe, not as a servant, but as an equal. The day after humanity's reply, the world felt different. It was still the same planet, the oceans, the forests, the cities. But something had shifted. People walked with a quieter confidence. The sun rose and children ran to school without the usual nervousness that had gripped them in the past weeks. Adults carried on their work, but every task seemed infused with a subtle pride. Something had changed deep within the collective human spirit. The alien ships had retreated, though not entirely gone. Some still hovered at the edge of the atmosphere, observing from a distance. The Galactic Council had not issued any further orders. That silence, strange and unexpected, was louder than any warning could have been. Scientists and analysts in New Geneva studied the remaining ships, running calculations, monitoring signals, trying to understand what the aliens were thinking. For the first time, there were more questions than answers. The people of Earth were not idle. Across continents, communities rebuilt the routines that had been disrupted by the Council's arrival. Markets reopened, schools resumed, and farmers returned to their fields. But beneath these ordinary activities, a subtle energy moved through humanity. It was a quiet determination, a shared understanding that they had done something that no other species had done before. They had faced a civilization far older, far stronger, and they had spoken without fear. In government centers, leaders exchanged messages with each other constantly. They shared not only intelligence about the alien technology, but also ideas about how to strengthen humanity's position in the universe. Scientists, engineers, and thinkers worked together like never before. Projects that had once been separate, space exploration, renewable energy, defense systems, merged into coordinated plans. For the first time in history, every human endeavor felt connected, part of a larger purpose. Meanwhile, the Galactic Council itself was in turmoil. Across countless star systems, representatives debated Earth's response. Some were angry. Their usual methods, intimidation, threats, and displays of overwhelming power, had failed. They had never faced a world that refused submission so calmly, without panic or pleading. Others were curious. They had underestimated humans, assuming that fear would always control behavior. The calmness, the confidence, the unity, and it was unfamiliar. Dangerous, even. One council member spoke for hours, analyzing Earth's history and behavior. "This species is unpredictable," he said. "They have survived famine, disease, and their own wars. They learn fast and they adapt. Their refusal was not reckless. It was calculated. And yet, it carries an energy we have not seen before." The alien historians, usually cold and methodical, began to study humanity more closely. They reviewed old transmissions, historical records, and cultural archives. They saw that humans had a habit of turning desperate situations into opportunities. They rebuilt after disasters, innovated under pressure, and formed connections across boundaries that seemed impossible. In short, humans did not simply survive. They evolved through struggle. Back on Earth, ordinary life was intertwined with this new understanding. Citizens did not take part in grand battles or interstellar diplomacy. They lived, worked, and learned, but every action carried weight. People fixed broken streets, cleaned parks, taught children, shared resources with neighbors. Every act was small but meaningful, a subtle signal to the universe. Humanity could not be subdued through fear. The alien ships occasionally moved, adjusting their positions, as if testing the planet. Every movement was analyzed by Earth's new network of scientists and observers. Each change brought cautious excitement but no panic. Humanity had already learned to watch, to wait, and to respond with thought rather than panic. In small communities, people discussed what had happened. Stories were shared about the one-word reply. Parents told their children about the moment when a single word spoke for billions. Teachers used it as a lesson about courage and dignity. Artists painted, sculpted, and wrote, capturing the energy of that day. Musicians composed melodies that echoed the strength of a species united. The word no became a symbol, not of rebellion, but of humanity's ability to choose its own path. Governments also worked to coordinate resources in new ways. Food, energy, and medical supplies were distributed more efficiently. The crisis had revealed flaws in infrastructure, but it also had shown what humans could achieve when they acted as one. Engineers redesigned cities to be safer and more adaptable. Transportation systems were synchronized. Schools and hospitals collaborated across borders. Every step was a quiet declaration. Humanity was alive, resilient, and awake. In the following weeks, the Council monitored Earth closely. They observed not only the planet but also the behavior of humans themselves. They saw families supporting each other, communities cooperating, leaders guiding with thought rather than force. Every signal indicated that humanity's strength was not in weapons or fleets but in unity, adaptability, and courage. Some council members began to fear Earth, not because humans had power in the conventional sense, but because they had something far more unpredictable: creativity, compassion, and determination. They realized that humans could not be easily controlled. The species could not be understood simply as a population to be commanded. Humans acted on ideas, emotions, and principles, things that could not be predicted with numbers or calculations. Back on Earth, the representative who had spoken the one word became a quiet figure of guidance. He did not seek attention or glory. He spent his days consulting with scientists, educators, and leaders, helping coordinate efforts to strengthen humanity without arrogance. He understood that the victory was not in making the aliens leave, but in the way humans had behaved. Calm, measured, and confident. The alien ships, for their part, began to gradually withdraw. The Council had expected Earth to crumble under pressure, yet the planet remained steady. The longer they observed, the more they realized that humans were different from any species they had encountered. They did not surrender, yet they did not act recklessly. They were patient, adaptable, and united. By the end of the first month, the remaining ships returned to distant orbits, no longer hovering above cities. The Council had decided, without announcing it, to give Earth space. They could have destroyed the planet, taken its resources, or forced submission, but they chose not to. Humans had shown a quality that the Council had never expected: self-respect, unity, and a calm refusal to bow. On Earth, life returned to a form of normalcy, but people knew it was a different kind of normal. Humanity had tasted its own strength, and it would not forget. The one word had changed more than interstellar relations. It had changed how people saw themselves. Citizens walked taller, communities worked closer, and nations cooperated in ways that had seemed impossible before. The word no was whispered in homes, discussed in schools, celebrated quietly in the hearts of everyone. Even in remote areas, people who had never seen the alien ships or the global broadcast felt the ripple. They heard stories, shared rumors, and understood instinctively that something significant had occurred. Humanity had stood together, and the entire species had spoken as one. Leaders in New Geneva realized that their next task was not to prepare for retaliation, but to prepare for opportunity. The Council had been tested and Earth had survived. Now humans could build, explore, and connect in ways that had once seemed impossible. The challenge was no longer fear but growth, learning to thrive in a universe that had suddenly taken notice. As the weeks passed, schools taught children about courage in simple terms, standing firm when it mattered, speaking truth calmly, and trusting in humanity's strength. Scientists shared knowledge across continents. Inventors collaborated across borders, and communities continued to support each other in everyday acts. Every action, small or large, became part of the silent message that humanity had sent to the stars. Earth could not be commanded, but it could be trusted to stand as an equal. The Galactic Council, though distant, had begun to reconsider its approach to other worlds. Earth had shown that fear alone could not govern intelligent species. Respect, curiosity, and understanding were as powerful as fleets and weapons. Humanity's one-word reply had created a lesson the galaxy would remember for centuries. And on Earth, people continued to live their lives with subtle pride. Farmers worked their fields, engineers built new cities, teachers taught children, and ordinary citizens helped one another. There was no need for displays of heroism or grand speeches. Humanity had already demonstrated its courage. The quiet, steady life of billions of humans, living with dignity, had spoken louder than any words the Council could have demanded. The one-word reply had not only changed the world's relationship with the galaxy, it had changed humanity itself. People realized they were capable of facing the unknown without fear. They understood that unity, courage, and calm determination could create change far greater than violence or submission. And deep within every heart, a quiet confidence grew. Humanity was ready for whatever lay ahead. The alien ships had retreated, but the memory of their presence remained. People often looked up at the night sky and thought of the unknown, the distant stars, and the possibilities waiting beyond. But now, instead of fear, they felt anticipation. Humans had faced a challenge greater than themselves, and the weeks after Earth's one-word reply passed quietly. But the people of the planet knew calm would not last forever. The Galactic Council had not left entirely. Some ships still lingered at the edges of the solar system, and subtle signals suggested they were testing humanity, watching, calculating, trying to understand how this one planet had defied the rules that had governed the galaxy for centuries. The people of Earth did not panic. Instead, they prepared, not in fear but in curiosity and determination. Scientists worked to understand alien communication patterns. Engineers examined ways to observe and possibly interact with the ships. Students in schools learned about astronomy, physics, and the basics of interstellar signals. Communities built networks to share knowledge quickly, ensuring that even the remotest villages were connected to the flow of information. The first challenge came unexpectedly. A small Council scout ship moved into low orbit, a subtle but deliberate intrusion. Its purpose was clear. It was not meant to attack, but to test how humans would respond. Many expected panic, yet the response was quiet and thoughtful. Observatories tracked the ship carefully. Teams of scientists calculated its trajectory, studied its energy signatures, and even detected signals that might contain messages. Diplomats and leaders debated. Should they communicate or simply observe? The answer was clear. Humanity would respond intelligently, not with fear or aggression. Communications experts designed a simple protocol. It wasn't a message demanding peace or submission. It was a demonstration, a signal showing Earth's capabilities and thought processes. Using a combination of radio waves and light pulses, the signal transmitted patterns representing basic mathematics, music, and human creativity. It wasn't threatening. It wasn't begging. It was an introduction. The scout ship lingered, its presence almost imperceptible to the naked eye, but humanity watched carefully. When the signal reached the Council's monitoring systems, it had the desired effect. The aliens paused, not in anger but in curiosity. No other species had sent such a calm, intelligent, and deliberate demonstration of thought and coordination. On the ground, people went about their daily lives, yet there was a quiet pride in their actions. Teachers spoke about the signal in classrooms, emphasizing that humans had shown more than courage. They had shown intelligence, unity, and creativity. Children marveled at the idea that their small planet had reached out to the stars not with weapons, but with art and mathematics. Engineers in laboratories worked tirelessly to refine Earth's ability to communicate further. Satellites were equipped to send signals automatically. Algorithms were designed to learn from the Council's reactions. Humans had never coordinated on this scale before, but the threat had become an opportunity, a chance to demonstrate what it truly meant to be human. In the command center beneath New Geneva, leaders and scientists gathered daily. They monitored the scout ship and debated the next steps. Some suggested sending a direct message, while others advocated waiting to see how the aliens would respond. Eventually, they agreed on a cautious, deliberate approach, a combination of observation and interaction, demonstrating intelligence, patience, and respect. Meanwhile, across the planet, communities participated in this silent challenge in their own ways. Amateur astronomers recorded the skies. Students built simple instruments to track signals. People in remote villages shared their observations with scientists in real time. Even small acts, like helping neighbors, sharing food, and maintaining social stability, were understood as part of the demonstration. Earth was united, coordinated, and resilient. The first major test came when the Council attempted to interfere with human satellite communications. A sudden wave of energy disrupted transmissions across a continent, an indirect warning rather than an attack. Analysts detected the source immediately. Panic could have spread, but the response was calm and precise. Scientists rerouted satellites, re-established communication, and even used the disruption as a teaching opportunity for students and engineers. In a quiet ceremony broadcast worldwide, the representative who had spoken the one word addressed the public. "We face challenges every day," he said. "Some are small, some are large, but we always have a choice. Today we have chosen to learn and adapt. The Council tests us, but we will respond with thought, not fear. We show the galaxy that humanity does not bow easily. Not because we are reckless, but because we are united, intelligent, and determined." The message spread quickly. Across the globe, people felt a sense of shared purpose. Every action, no matter how small, became a contribution to humanity's resilience. Farmers sending extra food to cities, engineers working through the night to secure communication networks, teachers explaining the science behind the signals. All of it became part of the collective effort. The scout ship, still observing, seemed to pause as Earth responded with creativity and intelligence rather than panic or aggression. Analysts noted that the Council's sensors detected not just technology, but organization, coordination, and thought. Humans were learning quickly, adjusting their systems, and demonstrating a level of problem-solving that no other species had shown. As weeks passed, humanity began to expand its understanding of interstellar communication. Artists composed visual and musical patterns that were sent as signals. Mathematicians created sequences that illustrated Earth's logic and reasoning. Students participated by submitting ideas and designs. Even the youngest children in classrooms across continents felt they were part of this demonstration of unity. The Council's reactions were subtle, but noticeable. Some ships moved slightly farther from Earth as if giving space. Observers reported longer pauses in their signals, delays that suggested analysis rather than immediate response. Humanity had learned an important lesson. The galaxy could be influenced without confrontation, using intelligence, patience, and creativity. Back in New Geneva, scientists and leaders began planning the next phase of interaction. They focused not on weapons or defenses, but on observation, communication, and learning. Satellites were upgraded with the ability to detect even minor energy fluctuations in space. Algorithms were created to predict alien behavior patterns. Networks were established to coordinate responses across continents in real time. Humanity was becoming more than a planet. It was a thinking, coordinated system, ready to face challenges in ways the Council had not expected. Small communities around the world continued to play their part. Children learned to recognize patterns in signals. Amateur radio operators sent coded sequences to satellites. Teachers encouraged curiosity and creativity. Every human, knowingly or unknowingly, contributed to the silent demonstration that Earth was united, resilient, and intelligent. Eventually, the Council seemed to recognize a new reality. Humanity had survived their tests not by brute force, not by obedience, but by thinking, learning, and adapting. They were unpredictable, patient, and coordinated, qualities that could not be measured by strength alone. Analysts in the Council reported that Earth's one-word refusal had been followed by an unprecedented display of strategic intelligence and creativity. Back on Earth, life continued as normal, yet with a new understanding. People realized that courage was not just about facing danger, but about thinking clearly and acting together. Communities became more organized, education improved, and collaboration across nations grew stronger. Humanity had learned that resilience was not just about survival, but about preparation, adaptation, and unity. The first direct challenge from the Council had been subtle: a scout ship, a disruption of signals, a test of coordination. But humanity had responded calmly, intelligently, and creatively. The planet had demonstrated that it could meet challenges without fear or rash decisions. That quiet collective effort became a turning point in human history. By the end of the first months after the initial confrontation, humanity had not only survived the Council's tests but had thrived in the process. Engineers had improved communication networks. Scientists had gained knowledge about alien technology. Citizens had participated in a global effort to show unity, intelligence, and creativity. The world had become stronger, more connected, and more aware of its potential. The one-word reply had been the spark. The first indirect challenge to the Council had been the demonstration. Humanity had not bowed, had not fought blindly, and had not panicked. Instead, it had used its greatest strengths: intelligence, creativity, patience, and unity. And in doing so, it had shown the galaxy that Earth was not a world to be commanded, but a species to be respected. The lesson was simple. Power alone could not control a species that was intelligent, united, and determined. Humanity had faced its first indirect challenge from the Galactic Council, and in response, it had grown stronger, wiser, and more resilient. And in every home, classroom, and community across the planet, people felt the quiet pride of knowing they had participated in something larger than themselves. They had not just survived, they had proven that humanity could face the universe with courage, intelligence, and unity. Months had passed since humanity's first one-word reply. The initial tension with the Galactic Council had gradually shifted into cautious observation. Earth was no longer a quiet, hidden world. It had become a subject of fascination and respect. Not because of weapons, not because of numbers, but because of courage, intelligence, and unity. The alien ships no longer hovered directly above cities. Most had retreated to distant orbits, but they continued to watch, their sensors observing human activity with careful attention. Analysts reported subtle changes in the Council's communications: more discussion, longer pauses, and repeated assessments of Earth's behavior. Humans had proven themselves in ways the Council had not anticipated, and they were trying to understand it. On Earth, life had changed, but not in ways that were dramatic or loud. It was quieter, steadier, stronger. Communities were more connected. People collaborated across borders. Scientists shared discoveries freely. Engineers, students, and artists all participated in a collective effort to grow knowledge and understanding. Humanity had discovered that resilience was not just survival. It was learning, adapting, and improving together. In cities, new observatories were built, staffed not only by scientists but by volunteers who had learned to read the skies. Children who had once feared the alien presence now looked up at the stars with curiosity and pride. Schools taught astronomy, logic, and strategy alongside traditional subjects. The culture of Earth had changed. Collaboration, problem-solving, and courage had become part of daily life. The Galactic Council began to interact indirectly. Their ships sent signals, complex patterns that tested Earth's understanding of mathematics, music, and logic. Humans responded, not with aggression, but with creativity. Scientists and engineers worked with artists, linguists, and teachers to craft responses that were calm, thoughtful, and precise. Every signal sent was a demonstration. Earth was a species, capable of thinking, learning, and understanding on a scale the Council had not seen before. The more the Council observed, the more it became clear that humanity was unusual. They did not rely on brute force, but on adaptability and intelligence. They did not panic in the face of power, but calculated their responses carefully. And most importantly, they were united. Every citizen in their own way contributed to the collective knowledge and resilience of the planet. The representative who had spoken the one word remained a quiet guide. He traveled among scientists, educators, and engineers, helping coordinate projects, answer questions, and offer insight. He rarely appeared on broadcasts, preferring to work behind the scenes. Yet his influence was felt everywhere. People trusted his calm authority and his belief in humanity's potential. Humanity began to take the first steps toward interstellar communication beyond the Council's tests. Satellites transmitted patterns into space, demonstrating not only knowledge but culture, music, visual art, literature, and mathematics. Signals were designed to be understood by intelligent species, not as a demand, but as an invitation. It was a message of curiosity and collaboration, the first true outreach from a planet that refused to bow. In the first small reactions from distant star systems, humanity discovered allies they had not imagined. Other worlds who had observed. The Council's interactions with Earth began to communicate. They were cautious at first, sharing small messages of curiosity. But soon they offered ideas, knowledge, and even technology to help Earth continue its development. The one-word reply had not just defended the planet, it had opened a door to the galaxy. The Council, observing these developments, grew both cautious and curious. Some members feared Earth's influence spreading, but others were intrigued. They had underestimated a species that refused submission, yet approached challenges with intelligence and creativity rather than violence. The same qualities that had terrified them now made them reconsider how to approach other worlds. On Earth, life continued with a sense of purpose. Farmers experimented with sustainable agriculture, engineers built advanced infrastructure, and schools encouraged critical thinking. Communities worked together to solve local problems while also contributing to global efforts. Every human action, no matter how small, became part of the planet's collective identity. Humanity had learned that unity and collaboration were as powerful as any technology or weapon. The alien scout ship still visited occasionally, testing responses and monitoring progress. Every test was met with patience, intelligence, and coordination. Earth demonstrated that it could adapt to new challenges without fear, using creativity and reasoning rather than force. Humans had turned every indirect challenge into an opportunity to grow, learn, and demonstrate their resilience. As Earth gained recognition across the galaxy, other species began to respect its place. They saw that humanity was unpredictable, not in a reckless way, but in its creativity and willingness to act according to principles. Humans valued freedom, dignity, and knowledge, qualities that could not be controlled or predicted by intimidation alone. On the surface of the planet, life felt ordinary, yet extraordinary. People still went to work, attended school, and lived their daily lives. But every action was infused with a quiet confidence. Citizens built networks to share knowledge. Communities developed new solutions for old problems. Science, art, and culture thrived together. Humanity had learned to approach life not as isolated individuals but as a connected species capable of standing tall in the universe. The representative often reflected on the journey. He remembered the fear, the uncertainty, and the tension of those first hours when the Galactic Council demanded submission. He remembered the single word that changed everything. Now, he saw a planet that had transformed. People had not only survived the test, they had grown, adapted, and begun to reach for the stars with intelligence, creativity, and unity. By the end of the year, humanity had established its first formal contact network with several distant civilizations. They were cautious, exchanging knowledge and culture rather than political or military directives. Earth had become a hub of curiosity, learning, and collaboration. a place that inspired both allies and observers. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, had retreated further. They maintained observation, but their assumptions about power and control had been challenged. They recognized that intelligence, creativity, and unity were forms of influence far stronger than intimidation. Humanity had shown them that a species could resist domination without violence and could thrive through patience, collaboration, and principle. In towns and cities across the planet, people continued to look at the stars. Children dreamed of exploration. Teachers encouraged curiosity. Scientists worked tirelessly to decode signals from distant worlds. Artists captured the beauty and complexity of the universe. Every human contribution, no matter how small, became part of the story of a species that had chosen its own path. Earth had become more than a planet. It was a symbol of courage, resilience, creativity, and unity. The one-word reply had been the spark, the first statement that humanity was not a species to be commanded. The first indirect challenge had been met with intelligence and coordination, proving that humans could face any obstacle without fear. And now, humanity had begun to inspire others, demonstrating that strength is not only measured in power but in knowledge, collaboration, and the ability to act with dignity. The representative looked up at the night sky one evening, reflecting on the journey. "We are small," he thought, "but we are not weak. We are curious, adaptable, and united, and the universe will remember that." People on Earth continued their lives, quietly proud. No one celebrated with loud displays or ceremonies. The victory was subtle, shared across billions of hearts. Humanity had faced an interstellar empire and responded not with fear or aggression, but with intelligence, creativity, and unity. And so, life went on. Schools, homes, laboratories, and communities all carried the quiet strength of a species that had refused submission and proven its place in the galaxy. Humans looked at the stars not with fear, but with curiosity and pride. They had discovered that courage is not just survival, but the ability to learn, adapt, and stand together. Earth had spoken one word, faced a challenge, and shown the galaxy what it truly meant to be human. And from that day forward, humans walked taller, worked together more closely, and dreamed more boldly, not just for themselves but for the legacy of a species that refused to bow. The galaxy had noticed, other civilizations had learned, and humanity had begun a journey that would shape its place in the stars for generations to come. The one-word reply, simple, calm, and human, had not only terrified the Galactic Council. It had inspired a planet. It had strengthened a species. It had opened the doors to the universe. And humanity, united, curious, and courageous, stepped forward into the unknown, ready for whatever challenges and discoveries lay ahead.